Hello again. I'm glad you're here. Tonight's story takes us somewhere different. Not into war, not into ruins, but into one of the greatest places ever built for thought, learning, and silence. The Library of Alexandria. It's the middle of the 1st century BC. The world is changing. Empires are moving. But inside the library's marble walls, everything is still. You are not famous. You are not powerful. You're just here among the scrolls, the scholars, and the quiet. And the night will pass, whether you notice it or not. If stories like this help you rest, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you're still awake, I'd love to know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you. It's always comforting to know we're drifting off together, even if we're far apart. Now dim the lights. Let the rest of the world fade, and step into the Library of Alexandria. The air is warm, still, filled with the scent of parchment and old wood. You stand just inside the entrance of the library, one of the few allowed to linger this late. You're not a philosopher. You're not a priest. You're simply helpful, quiet, trusted enough to carry torches through the inner halls, trusted enough to be forgotten, which in this place is a kind of power. Marble pillars stretch upward toward a ceiling you can't quite see. The torchlight doesn't reach that high, but you've walked here enough times to know the way, step by step, past the statues, past the old maps drawn by hands that no longer exist, past languages you can't read, but that still somehow feel familiar. Tonight feels like any other, but you feel that something is strange. The scribes are more hurried than usual. The guards near the harbor didn't return your nod. And earlier today, from the upper balcony, you saw smoke far off near the edge of the city. But the scrolls need sorting, and the library, it waits for no one. This is your night now, to walk, to watch, to remember, even if no one else will. You arrive at the library just before dusk, when the sun leans against the horizon like a tired god. The air is thick with dust and salt from the harbor, and the scent of ink, parchment, and old wood clings to your robe. You hesitate at the threshold. The great marble doors stand open, wide enough to swallow 10 men, but the corridor beyond is silent. A quiet that feels expectant, like the building is breathing. Inside, torchlight flickers along sandstone walls, throwing shadows that stretch and contract like memories. A librarian in white linen nods to you but says nothing. You know your way. Past the vestibule, beneath the statue of Thoth, with its ibis head watching you pass. Past the bronze globe spinning slowly on its axis, etched with stars whose names only a handful of scholars can read. You run your fingers along the polished stone railing as you descend into the main chamber, a vast circular room that seems more like a sanctuary than a library. Dozens of alcoves line the outer wall, each one lit by oil lamps and stacked with scrolls bound in faded leather or cloth. In the center stands a single desk, empty now, but you imagine the presence of a scribe there, hunched over a new translation, whispering the words to himself like a prayer. The silence deepens. This place isn't quiet like the marketplace after dark. It's quiet in the way old temples are, heavy, sacred, aware of your footsteps. You walk slower. Your sandals barely make a sound against the marble floor. Above you, the ceiling arches high, disappearing into soft shadow. Painted constellations peer down like gods trapped in time. You pause beneath them and tilt your head, eyes tracing the curve of Orion's bow, the shimmer of Sirius rendered in gold leaf. Somewhere in your chest, a calm settles. You move toward the alcove labeled Medicine and Mysteries. That's why you came tonight. To read again the scroll said to contain remedies from the lost priests of Memphis. written in a dialect barely anyone can speak anymore. It's shelved near the back, beneath a cracked bust of Serapis. You find the scroll wrapped in soft linen, tucked in its niche as if asleep. You carry it to a reading bench near the atrium, where the last light of day filters in through a high window. As you unroll the parchment, the scent of myrrh and dried ink rises gently. The letters curve in elegant strokes, a mix of Greek and something older, Egyptian, maybe, or something stranger. You don't need to rush. Tonight is long, and the city outside has already begun to slow. You can hear it, the soft clatter of hooves on stone, the distant echo of a horn, the final call of a merchant before shutters close. You sit, you read, you are in the Library of Alexandria, and the world has never felt quieter. You're not sure how long you've been reading. The scroll is hypnotic, not in what it says, but how it says it. The words hum against the inside of your skull, old and careful, strung together in rhythms that feel almost sacred. It doesn't read like a list of remedies. It reads like a map for a soul to return to its body. Remedies for fevers, yes, but also for forgetting, for grief, for dreams that refuse to end. You wonder who wrote it. Their name is nowhere on the parchment. Only a symbol at the end of each section, a spiral within a square, like a maze you're not meant to escape from. Outside, the wind shifts. You hear it through the high stone vents. Not loud, not urgent, but steady, intentional. It brings with it the smell of sea spray and something sharper. The scent of sand rubbed against stone, of air pressed against walls that have stood too long. You glance up. No one else is here. Not the librarian, not the scribes. Just the torches and the scroll and you. The silence is deeper now, less empty, more observant. You get up, scroll still in hand, and wander into another chamber. This one is darker, more enclosed. Clay tablets sit on ledges here, some broken, some etched with characters you've never seen, triangles, dots, curved blades. This room isn't meant for scholars. It's for record-keeping, for memory, not discovery. But the door was open, and the library rarely says no. You set the scroll down and move closer to a low stone shelf. The air is colder here, more ancient. There's a tablet sealed under glass, a cracked one, its edges blackened with age. The label reads, "Fragment from the House of Life, Thebes, recovered by Ptolemy III," but the glass is fogging. You blink, your breath, or something else? A rumble rolls through the stone beneath your feet. Not thunder, not entirely. It's too round, too close. The kind of sound a mountain makes when it stretches. You turn, glance back toward the atrium. The torchlight flickers harder now. The scroll you left behind trembles slightly, one edge lifting like parchment exhaling. You tell yourself it's the wind. You want it to be the wind. But the library is holding its breath. You walk faster now. Back through the passage, past the sleeping busts, past the constellations overhead. The desk in the center of the chamber is no longer empty. A book lies open there, but you didn't place it. It's not yours, and you can't remember it being there before. You stop. The air is warmer. The torches burn lower, but they don't die. The wind outside thickens, not louder, just heavier, as if it's carrying sand or ash. You press the scroll to your chest and walk to the edge of the rotunda, peering out through one of the narrow windows. The harbor is still visible in the distance, masts rocking gently, but the sky is the wrong color. Orange, too deep for twilight. Bruised. You step back. The scroll still hums in your hands. You don't want to leave. Not yet. The library has always felt like a sanctuary, but tonight it feels like a mouth slowly closing. You tell yourself, just one more passage. just one more page. And then you'll decide whether to stay. The city is different when you step outside the library's western passage, the one rarely used except by those who know the archives beneath the earth. The door you push through groans as if reluctant to let you leave, and the courtyard beyond it, once sunlit and noisy with students and merchants, is shrouded in an eerie stillness. Alexandria doesn't sleep early. But tonight, the streets move like they're waiting for something to end. The breeze carries dust instead of salt. The lamps flicker lower, and the people you pass no longer greet you with curious eyes. They look through you, around you, as if searching for answers you no longer have. You tuck the scroll into your robes and pull the fabric tighter, not for warmth, but for grounding. There's a strange pressure in the air, like the kind before a summer storm. But there are no clouds, no scent of rain, only the slow roll of heat rising from the ground, dense and tired, as if the city itself is sweating. As you cross the open forum, you see soldiers clustered by the edge of the portico, not patrolling, just standing, watching the sea, their armor dull in the fading light. One of them, a younger one with a scar beneath his eye, glances toward you. He doesn't speak, but he narrows his eyes, then turns away like someone who's heard bad news and doesn't want to hear more. You make your way to the lower markets, where the sound of haggling has softened into the rustle of fabric and the closing of wooden shutters. A fishmonger wraps up his stall in silence. An elderly woman pours the last of her water into a clay basin, letting it steam up into the air. You pause beside a column and watch them, these people who live just steps away from the greatest library ever built, yet look tonight as if they'd rather forget it exists. You hear whispers. A senator is missing. A boat left the harbor unannounced. A fire, someone says, at the temple of Hephaestus, but no smoke rises in the sky. Only that strange, heavy orange glow near the horizon. You move faster, past the silent apothecary, past the astrologer's hut where stars are charted and maps inked with trembling hands. The city feels older than it did this morning, more tired, like someone who's been carrying a secret for too long and is finally ready to drop it. At the edge of the garden district, you find yourself standing before a marble wall lined with inscriptions, names, dates, dedications to the gods. You run your hand across one letters carved so finely you feel the chisel in every edge. Beneath your fingers, to the light of knowledge may we be its vessel. You stare at it longer than you should, because even now, with the air growing thicker and your chest tightening, you feel drawn to it, like the library is calling you back, not just to shelter, but to remember. From behind you, footsteps, quick ones, someone running. You turn just in time to see a girl no older than 15 rush past. She doesn't stop, doesn't glance at you, but she's holding something close to her chest. A book, its cover soaked dark with sweat or water or blood, you're not sure which. She disappears into an alley, and when you listen closely, you hear another sound beneath the wind. Drums, not loud, but steady, measured, not a celebration, not music. Warning. You take a slower route back toward the library, away from the sound of the drums, away from the hurried feet of strangers clinging to their final sense of order. The alley you follow curves like a forgotten corridor, its walls high and smoothed by age. You remember this passage from your early days, when the library still felt too large to understand, and you spent afternoons wandering in the hopes of getting lost. It smells like pressed papyrus and drying limestone, a scent that has always made you feel small and safe. Tonight it only feels like a memory already fading at the edges. As you pass beneath a hanging canopy of woven reed, you pause beside a cracked basin where someone left wilted lotus petals floating on cloudy water. There's no shrine here, no statue, just petals, a prayer without a god, a ritual without a name. You crouch and let your fingers touch the surface. The water is warm, not from sunlight, from something deeper. You stand and feel the city shiver. When you emerge from the alley, the full bulk of the library rises before you, again, massive, solemn, eternal seeming. But you feel it now, don't you? The tension inside its stone, the knowledge of its own vulnerability. The steps are empty. The guards are gone. The outer atrium flickers with the unsteady light of unattended torches. You enter without being stopped, without a word exchanged. The quiet inside is heavy, not peaceful. It's the kind of quiet that fills a space after something important has already happened, but no one has spoken of it yet. It wraps around your chest like linen and smoke. Deeper in, you see two scribes arguing in hushed voices near the geometry wing. One clutches a scroll case to his chest like it's a child. The other gestures toward the shelves. You can't hear their words, but the debate is clear. What to save? What to leave? What will be lost either way? Neither of them notices you as you pass through. You recognize the scent of charcoal ink and dried citrus from the citrus peel used to clean old vellum. It smells like your first week here, like eagerness, like purpose. You descend the inner stairs, the ones carved so precisely that your feet fit into each hollow as if they were made for you. The floor below is colder, a relief or perhaps a warning. The stone whispers here, doesn't it? The way old places do when they know they're being seen for the last time. You move past scrolls that hold the mathematics of Babylon, the medicine of Carthage, the poetry of vanished empires. Their titles shimmer in the torchlight. You touch none of them. You've already memorized so many. They will go down with you if needed. In the chamber beneath the chamber, where only a handful of librarians are ever allowed, you see them gathering. A quiet congregation of those who understand. Some sit cross-legged on the floor, heads bowed over scrolls as if praying. Others whisper verses aloud, like an incantation to preserve them through breath. No one gives orders, no one screams. They've all accepted that the walls cannot hold forever. A girl no older than the one you saw in the alley kneels beside a small clay oil lamp and uses the flickering light to copy something quickly, carefully onto a fresh sheet of pressed papyrus. She writes with two hands. Her eyes don't blink. You do not interrupt. To break her rhythm would be theft. And then, beneath all of this, beneath the paper and the parchment and the ink and the quiet weirdly, you hear it. A murmur. Not words, not language. A low thrum as if the library itself is beginning to hum. As if all its knowledge is shivering, aware of what's coming. The temperature drops again. Dust swirls where there should be stillness. And then, faintly, above the chamber, someone begins to cry. One voice, then silence. Then nothing but the turning of one last page. You sit in the shadowed chamber beneath the central rotunda, where the archivists once held private readings for the scholars who came from distant lands, Athens, Cyrene, Antioch. This space was not meant for the public. It was not even marked from the outside. Only those who had studied within the library long enough knew the door carved into the marble behind the statue of Themis, whose eyes are still wrapped in linen and whose scales now hang uneven, one side heavier with dust than judgment. The silence is thick here, not the silence of emptiness, but of something listening. The papyrus-lined walls breathe faintly with the weight of centuries, each scroll rolled tight and shelved with obsessive care. A few of them are bound in palm twine, marked with ochre or dried berry ink. Some are older than the city itself, their titles faded, their languages dead. You pick up one, careful not to bend its edge. The text is in demotic, perhaps medical anatomical diagrams scribbled into the margins, red arrows pointing toward open hands and the curve of a rib. Another contains hymns to Serapis, offered at dusk with braided incense. You remember hearing them sung just once during the Feast of the Rebirth. The chorus rising from the temple steps carried on air thick with blue lotus smoke. That was before the Romans forbade it. Now only echoes remain. Echoes and ash. Across from you, an older man leans over a wooden case, his face half lit by an olive oil lamp cradled in an iron ring. His beard is streaked with clay-colored dust. His robe is unbelted. You recognize him, an astronomer from the upper hall, one who used to draw orbits on black stone with powdered chalk. Now he is copying names, not stars, people, names of those who studied here, who lived here. You watch as he finishes a name, exhales, and closes the scroll without fanfare. Then he opens another. Outside this room, the outer chambers have begun to fill with smoke. You can't see it yet, but the air presses closer now. The smell of cedar shelves warming too fast. The faintest hint of singed linen. The memory of heat before the heat comes. You shift your weight, feeling the smooth stone beneath your legs. Someone has placed a bowl of figs on a ledge nearby, alongside a small vessel of date wine, as if to feed the gods watching. Or maybe for the scribes themselves sustenance for the last hour of work. You take none. The hunger inside you has shifted. It is not for food. It is for preservation, for witness. Through the small, high window, just a narrow slit in the limestone, you can hear the sound of water again. The inner cistern, likely fed by the canal that runs under the floor of the temple district. It trickles faintly, steady, and unaware. That water has outlived dynasties. It will survive the fire. You wonder what else will. A distant clang echoes, perhaps bronze falling from a collapsed shelf. No one flinches. No one rushes toward the noise. This place has passed from urgency to devotion. What can be saved will be. What cannot will be remembered in silence. You lean back against a stone and close your eyes just for a moment, and in that darkness you do not see fire. You see the woman who first showed you how to catalog a scroll by the texture of its grain. You see the boy who recited Homer from memory because he couldn't afford a copy. You see the philosopher who came every morning, rain or dust storm, only to debate whether the world breathes or spins. They are all here now, their words, their warmth, still held for a moment longer in the house of living memory. The fire hasn't reached you, but it speaks through the stone, its message faint, like the shiver of a cracked vase in a silent room. You feel the vibrations beneath your heels, tiny pulses echoing upward through marble and dust. But your focus remains fixed on the heavy wooden door at the far end of the chamber. Unlike the other rooms, this one was locked. You used a bronze key you found beneath a small statue of Serapis, buried under ash and collapsed shelving. The door resisted, its hinges swollen with time, but eventually it gave way. Inside, a room colder than the others, still air, hanging like a tapestry of breathless silence. No torches here, no windows, just the dim glow of your dwindling oil lamp bouncing off thousands of carefully arranged clay tablets and scrolls, not stored vertically, but laid flat in stacked rows that stretched to the low ceiling. Many are marked with carved symbols you do not recognize. Not Greek, not Latin, not Egyptian. They belong to something older. You step in. The dust is thick. Even your footsteps sound quieter here, as if the chamber itself is afraid of being heard. You brush off a tablet resting at waist height. Its surface is smooth, carved with cuneiform so delicate It looks like pressed thread. You remember seeing fragments of these in a tutor's collection, Akkadian, maybe Sumerian, dead languages preserved only in syllables etched by reeds and time. But these are not fragments. They are entire voices, and they are everywhere. One scroll unrolls into a prayer that doesn't name a god, but describes one, a being with 12 hands and no face, who listens to the wind and judges only silence. Another tablet lists astronomical predictions for the year 2000 years ahead of its time, written with unnerving confidence and diagrams of stars that do not yet exist. You think for a moment that the scribe might have been mad. Then you wonder if madness is simply what we call knowledge that refuses to fit inside our smaller truths. There is a desk near the back. On it, an open codex made of bark, its pages stuck together with tree resin and something darker. The ink is red, not in the way pigment is red, in the way blood is. Its script is circular, spiraling inward toward a final word that has been smudged, torn, erased. A chair sits before it, unbroken, heavy, unused. Whoever sat here last left in a hurry. Or never at all. The deeper you go, the more the air resists you. Not just physically, spiritually. As if this chamber was built not just to store language, but to protect the world from what it says. Some of these scripts carry warnings, others carry instructions. One scroll, written in Phoenician, details the ingredients for a salve said to reverse death if applied to the tongue within 3 breaths. Another promises a way to hear the thoughts of birds by embedding powdered sapphire into one's teeth. You shake your head. It's too much. And yet, you feel no urge to leave. You imagine the scribes who worked here. Not just translators, but guardians. Men and women who understood the weight of a word well enough to bury it. You wonder how many languages died in this room on purpose. How many were lost, not through negligence, but through mercy. The silence grows heavier. You place the tablet back gently, like a priest might lower a relic into a tomb. The oil in your lamp flutters, almost out. The shadows lean in, stretching toward the secrets they were born to protect. And you? You remain still, eyes adjusting to the dark, heart steady. Because this is what you came for. Not knowledge, not glory, but presence. To be here while it still exists. To listen before the silence becomes permanent. You sit on the floor, knees against stone. You press your hand to the nearest script, not to read it, but to witness it. The letters are cold against your skin. Above you, the fire may rage. But down here, the world is still whispering, and you are still listening. The hallway beyond the chamber grows narrower, as though the library itself has begun to resist your presence. The walls press in, heavy with soot and silence, and the floor beneath your sandals is warped not by water, but by something older. You raise your lantern. Its flame stutters, weak against the air, flickering orange across rows of forgotten statues. Gods with broken faces, heroes whose names have been worn away. Whether it was the hand of time or a deliberate erasure, you cannot say. But their presence makes the corridor feel watched, as if memory itself has grown eyes. Here the marble gives way to rougher stone. Dampness clings to the air, and the scent shifts no longer parchment and cedar, but clay, smoke, and a bitter trace of something metallic. Perhaps blood, perhaps mercury. The scrolls tucked into alcoves are older, bound in animal skins, and painted with symbols too ancient to name. Babylonian, perhaps, or older. You feel less like a visitor and more like a trespasser. Then comes a sound, not your footsteps, but another. Deliberate, soft, a presence. From the archway ahead, a figure steps forward. No torch, no weapon. Just layers of cloth, the color of ash, and a silence so complete it hushes even your breath. No words are exchanged. They raise one hand, whether in peace or warning. You can't be sure, and then step aside. You pass them, and they vanish into the dark behind you like a shadow that was never real. The staircase before you is narrow, uneven, and ancient, built by hands that understood darkness better than light. As you descend, the carvings on the walls shift from decorative to incomprehensible. Not Greek, not Egyptian. Symbols meant less for reading and more for remembering or forgetting. Glyphs of eyes that never close, doors that never open, suns that never rise. You stop counting steps. At the bottom is a chamber lit by no flame you can see. A soft glow pulses from somewhere above, or perhaps from the walls themselves, and at its center sits the keeper. You do not know his name. You don't think anyone ever did. He is cloaked in robes the color of stone, his beard long and stiff with ash. His eyes are shut, but you feel them on you. Behind him, hundreds of urns sit on shelves unmarked, sealed, and perfectly still. In front of him is a low table of black stone, upon which rest several tiny books no larger than your palm. He gestures to one. You do not move, and he does not expect you to. This is not a place of action. It is a place of witness. He lifts one book and opens it not with his hands, but with presence. The pages unfold slowly, as if the air itself is reading them. You hear no words, yet meaning floods your mind. A city swallowed by sand before its first harvest. A girl who drew constellations no one had seen. A man who dreamed only of endings. You don't know if these are memories or myths, but something deep within you recognizes them. The keeper does not breathe. The urns do not stir. But the stories continue. You begin to understand. This chamber is not for preserving knowledge. It is for containing it. For hiding the things too dangerous, too sorrowful, too strange to be held in the light above. These urns are not for the dead. They are for those who remember too well. And now, by stepping here, by listening, you are one of them. The air grows warmer. A faint sound above suggests collapse, but you remain. The keeper remains, and the story deepens. You do not sit, but your knees begin to soften, not from fatigue, but from the slow gravity of the place. The glow around the chamber pulses, not with urgency, but with a rhythm ancient and indifferent, like a heartbeat that predates your understanding of time. You glance again at the urns, hundreds, perhaps thousands, stacked in neat rows on every wall, each sealed with wax the color of dried blood. No labels, no symbols, just silence. It is a kind of order so absolute it feels hostile to change. The keeper still does not speak. He moves his hand slowly toward another small book, and it rises into the air with the same spectral weight as before. This one, however, does not open. Instead, it hovers before you and begins to hum. A sound not heard but known. You feel it behind your eyes like pressure, building in a dream you haven't had yet. The humming deepens, gains shape until it becomes a whisper, and the whisper becomes a voice. Your own voice, but not you. A memory forms not yours, but one you're now responsible for. A man kneels in a desert before a shrine made of bones. His hands shake, though there is no wind. Behind him, a shadow takes form and speaks a name you don't recognize, but instantly fear. The man stands, walks into the shadow, and disappears. The image fades. The urn before you quivers. A small crack forms at its base. You take a step back. The keeper's eyes remain closed. His body has not moved, but his presence has shifted. You feel it pushing against the edges of your thoughts, not to harm, not to threaten, but to weigh, as if you were being measured not for strength, but for capacity. For what you are willing to remember or forget. A third book rises, older than the rest. Its cover is made of something that once lived. The room dims further, and now you feel the stories trying to escape, not out of panic, but longing. These memories have waited centuries for someone who could hold them again, even briefly. But the keeper raises his hand. The book descends. The air stills. You're not here to read all of them. No one is. To carry too much would fracture the mind. These stories remain because they must, and they remain buried because the surface cannot hold them. A low tremor moves through the floor. Dust trickles from the ceiling. Far above, the library continues to shift. The heat grows. The keeper finally opens his eyes. They are not human eyes. They are not even ancient. They are reflective, like obsidian or oil slicked on water, black and iridescent, endless and unreadable. You do not look away, but your pulse thunders in your chest. You think you understand now. The keeper is not alive in the way you are. He is not guarding knowledge. He is part of it, made from it, sustained by it. Each story, each sealed urn, is another thread in his shape. He does not teach. He remembers. He lifts a final urn, larger than the rest, covered in wax, cloth, rope, sealed a dozen times over. He sets it before you, his eyes close again. The choice is not spoken, but it is clear. You may open it, or you may walk away. You reach toward it, but your hand stops short. The air around it is colder, heavier. You sense grief, not yours, but shared. Something inside that urn has been waiting, but it is not ready. And neither are you. You bow. The keeper nods once, barely, and the urn returns to its place. As you step away, the air lightens. The glow begins to fade. The door behind you opens, though it makes no sound. The keeper does not move again. You turn back once before you leave the chamber, not to remember, but to promise that you will not forget. And the stairwell rises to meet you. You step lightly through the marble threshold, into the less traveled eastern wing of the library where foreign tongues rest quietly beside Egyptian scrolls. The scent changes here. Less of aged papyrus, more of incense and dried herbs. A faint trace of cinnamon hangs in the warm air, likely from the scrolls recently imported from the Indus. This part of the library is older. The floor is uneven in places, the columns slightly warped from centuries of quiet wait. Above, open slits in the stone ceiling allow the orange light of late afternoon to fall in diagonal shafts, dust motes suspended like celestial codes. The sound of your footsteps softens on the woven rush mats that line certain corridors, placed by scribes who believed their work deserved silence. It's here you first sense it, that feeling you were meant to be here now, not as a soldier, not even as a visitor, but as someone pulled forward by the will of knowledge itself. A young woman in a dark blue linen robe crosses your path. She carries a copper tray with a single candle and a folded piece of parchment. Her eyes meet yours for only a moment, but you see something recognition, perhaps, or warning. She disappears down a curved hall without a word. To your left, the corridor opens into what looks like a chamber, not listed on the layout you memorized during training. The door is half open. It groans softly when you push it, revealing a low-ceilinged archive room filled with metal shelves. No torches here, just sunlight and shadow and the subtle glint of something ancient. Inside, a man sits cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by cracked clay tablets. His robes are colorless, as if dusted over by time. He does not look up when you enter, but gestures toward the shelves as though inviting you to browse. You hesitate. No one told you this section was active. You approach cautiously. The shelves contain artifacts you've only heard rumors of, scrolls etched with iron-based ink that stains the fingertips. wax tablets from forgotten ports, a book made entirely of folded bronze plates, wrapped in goat leather. One scroll is marked only with a symbol, a single eye, wide and unblinking. You trace your finger along its edge, but do not remove it. A low hum begins in your ear. Not sound exactly, more like pressure, like the air is thickening in meaning. The scribe on the floor exhales slowly, as though he's been holding his breath since before you arrived. A name passes your mind. It isn't yours. It's older than Latin, older than the temple records. You blink and the moment passes. The humming fades. The sunlight has shifted. When you look back, the man is gone, and yet the candle he left still burns unmoved by time, or air, or breath. You step out of the room and close the door behind you. And though you say nothing, you know now, something waits beneath this library. Not a fire, not yet, but something just as final. The hallways feel narrower now, not physically, but in mood, in the way shadows seem to hang longer between the torch sconces, the way your sandals echo not once, but twice, as if something unseen walks just behind. You pass a statue of Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods. His beak points downward, not in reverence, but contemplation, as if considering the weight of all that has been written, and how little of it will ever be remembered. Further in, you pass rows of scrolls wrapped not in linen, but in thin hammered silver, etched with characters too delicate for your tongue. These are the works brought from the East Persian, Chaldean, Babylonian. Philosophies folded into poetry, into math, into silence. A chamber of stone tables sits to your right, each holding a half-finished translation. You imagine the scholar who left midline. Did they go for bread? Or did they vanish like so many others who get too close to truths they were never meant to name? In one corner, behind a carved cedar divider, you find what resembles a sleeping eyrie, although it seems less a place of rest and more of exile. A thin mattress of papyrus fibers, a jug of water, and a candle burned halfway down. Someone has lived here, not for comfort, but necessity. On the wall are scratched diagrams, a map of stars, perhaps, or an encoded record of something sacred. And beneath it, one word repeated several times in different scripts. You recognize the Greek, Lethe, the river of forgetting. You don't touch it. You don't breathe too loudly. Something about this room asks you to forget you even saw it. As you retreat, your eyes scan the rows again. There's a subtle slope in the floor that you hadn't noticed before, almost imperceptible. You follow it. The descent leads to a part of the library where the walls change color. Less marble, more basalt. The scent of earth thickens. You're now beneath the library, not officially, but practically. You suspect this section isn't on any map because it was never meant to be found by those who serve. You are far past the public chambers, far from the perfume of official wisdom. Here the air is colder, the shelves are lower, the texts are bound in leather that hasn't aged, their spines marked not with language, but with shapes. A hand, a key, a circle within a square. You reach for one but pause. Something behind your eyes warns you not to. Instead, you kneel and examine the base of the shelf. There, tucked behind a cracked tile, is a rolled fragment of parchment, unmarked on the outside. You unfurl it carefully. It is not in a language, you know, but it's a list. The format is familiar. Name, date, location. Except the dates stretch backward and forward, some marked with symbols not of this world. Some haven't even happened yet. Your name is not on it, but your master's is. So is the governor's, the high priest, the astronomer who charted the last eclipse. You re-roll the parchment and place it back, not because you were told to, but because you understand now that some things will find you, whether you read them or not. As you stand and turn, you find a new path before you. Not one you took to enter. You don't remember a door there. And yet there it is, a darkened corridor with a single brazier-burning blue flame. It flickers as if welcoming you, or warning you, or both. You walk toward it anyway, because now you understand. The library is not just a place where knowledge is kept. It is where knowledge keeps you. You enter the corridor lit by that unsettling blue flame, and it curves downward, not a staircase, not a ramp, just an imperceptible shift in slope that makes your steps feel longer, your breathing slower. The air tightens. The stone walls here are damp and lined not with scrolls, but with shallow alcoves, each holding strange objects. A jawbone etched with runes, a feather encased in resin, a shard of obsidian humming softly as you pass. None of them are labeled. None of them feel inert. At the end of the corridor, an archway appears, carved in a language you once saw on a coin buried under the Temple of Serapis. The inscription reads, "Those who forget will find peace. Those who remember must serve." Beyond it, a vast chamber unfolds. Unlike the orderly shelves above, this space is chaos shaped by ritual. Piles of scrolls and tomes lean in crooked towers as though haphazard, but you sense a pattern you can't decode. The center of the room glows with a green light, and sitting beneath it is the archivist. They are cloaked in fabric so dark it reflects nothing. Not black, but absence. Their hands, when visible, are thin, with ink permanently stained into the wrinkles like veins. They do not look up as you enter. Instead, they speak softly but clearly, as though continuing a conversation you do not remember starting. "You've come far for someone who was only meant to carry oil and sweep the dust," the archivist says. "But perhaps the library has chosen you. Or perhaps it's curious what you'll do with what you were never meant to find." You hesitate, unsure whether to respond. But silence here is not an escape. The archivist lifts a scroll bound in sinew and unrolls it just enough for the dust to pour off like fine sand. "This speaks of a visitor," they continue. "One who wandered too deep, who read a sentence not meant for mortal memory. That sentence had no subject, only consequence." You ask what it said. The archivist's eyes, gray and unfocused, narrow. "You already know," they whisper. "You dream it every time you forget why you walked into a room. You don't know if this is mockery or truth." You step closer, and the archivist allows it. Around them, small bowls of crushed herbs burn slowly, each giving off a different scent: frankincense, myrrh, something metallic. On the walls are diagrams of human figures, each drawn without eyes. Their heads are hollow, filled instead with symbols: stars, fire, thorns, gates. "What is this place?" you ask. The archivist smiles without showing teeth. "This is where knowledge comes when it's been discarded too many times, where truths go to wait for a more patient species." A crack echoes through the corridor behind you. The hallway is gone. You are not surprised. "Time does not pass here," the archivist says, "until you make a decision, to forget or to serve." You ask what serving means. They gesture to the alcoves, to the trinkets lining the wall. Each of those once had a name, a purpose, a bearer. Now they are all that remains of those who stayed too long. You ask if there is a way out. "Of course," the archivist replies. "There is always a way out. But once you leave, you will not remember why you feared staying." They reach beneath their cloak and draw out a small scroll tied with black string. "Take this. When the time comes, it will either open the door or erase it." You hesitate. But you take it, because somehow you already had. You carry the scroll, though you stopped checking to see if it's still in your hand. It is, every time. Even when you're sure you dropped it. even when you're certain you've passed it to the archivist in a moment that doesn't exist anymore. It always returns, tied with the same black string, warm to the touch like it's absorbing the memory of your grip. The room beyond the archivist's table isn't on any map, nor does it feel tethered to time or place. The ceiling towers above impossibly high, upheld by thick columns made not of marble, but of stacked clay tablets, chipped and brittle, each one etched with glyphs that seem to shift when your eyes linger too long. Between the columns, shelves grow from the walls not built, but grown like the petrified roots of ancient trees, coiled and curling into impossible spirals. Books and scrolls rest in their folds. Some are sealed shut with melted wax, others open slowly on their own as if breathing. You step forward. The floor flexes underfoot, not stone, not earth, but something that responds to your weight with a soft sigh. You keep walking, not out of courage, out of reverence. The air thickens with silence, the kind of silence that watches. One shelf leans forward slightly as you pass, and the spine of a nearby book hums low. You don't touch it, but the title presses into your chest like a forgotten memory. Burden. The shelves become narrower, drawing inward. You try to mark your path, 3 pebbles lined on the floor, but when you glance back, they're gone. In their place is a melted candle, still warm. Shadows stretch along the walls and ripple at the corners of your vision, but they don't move. They listen. Something is here with you. It has always been here. Laughter, faint and wet, snakes through the gaps in the wood, a cough that tried to become a giggle, but gave up halfway. You turn. Nothing. You keep walking. A tome bound in chain rests on a low altar. Its title, To Remember is to Repeat. Next to it, another, The Cure for Memory. Its cover is stitched from parchment, mismatched fonts bleeding together like water-stained ink. You stare but do not read. Then you find it, a wall that isn't a wall. It reflects nothing, yet holds an image. A room, familiar, with light from a window, a table, a bowl of fruit. You do not know it, but it aches like something once yours. The mirror breathes once, and you raise the scroll. It unties itself. You blink and you're seated once more in the circular chamber where you first arrived. The archivist's cloak lies folded neatly on the table. Their gloves rest on top. No one else remains. The scroll in your hand is blank. You whisper something, maybe your name, maybe a question. The room exhales, and somewhere behind your ribs you remember something, just for a moment. Then it's gone. Like it never belonged to you, only the stillness remains. You place the scroll on the table, stand, and the shelves begin to rearrange, waiting for the next arrival. There is a long hallway ahead, longer than should be possible. You didn't see it before. No one did. But now the torches along the left wall burn with a greenish flame, and the air smells faintly of rust and rain-soaked parchment. You step into it. It is silent in the way empty fields are silent, like something has just left or is just about to arrive. The walls are carved from dark limestone, but they glisten as though sweat gathers on their surface. You run a hand along one edge and feel faint etchings beneath your fingertips. Not letters, not symbols, more like breaths pressed into stone. The path curves gently left and right, like a spiral uncoiling. You don't know how long you've been walking. The torches flicker but never fade. Eventually, the hallway ends, not in a door, but a mouth. That's what it looks like, an arch of jagged stone, teeth-like, with ivy creeping around the edges. You duck slightly and step through. Inside, wind. Not a breeze, not a draft wind. Powerful and constant, but not cold. It circles the room without stirring your clothes, as if choosing what to touch and what to leave alone. The room is circular, vast, with a domed ceiling that glows with pale golden light. It has no source. In the center stands a figure, back turned. You know instinctively not to call out. They are tall, draped in a robe that shifts color as they move slightly blues and grays and something deeper, like the sky before a storm. Their head is crowned not with gold or laurel, but what looks like twisted quills, hundreds of them, like feathers petrified in flight. This is the keeper. You do not speak, you only wait. A moment later they raise their hand. In their palm is a small folded square of parchment. They do not offer it. They simply hold it out, letting the wind tug at its edges. Slowly it begins to unfold. Not by touch, but by memory yours. You see a village, a small home, a garden with herbs, someone's laugh, the sound of your own footsteps running through rain. You blink and it's gone. You weren't supposed to see it. The keeper lowers their hand. Their voice, when it comes, is not spoken. It moves through the wind. Not all things forgotten are lost, it says. Some are kept here until they're ready to be remembered. You feel something press gently against your chest, a weightless warmth like a fire inside a sealed jar, a memory you didn't know you missed. A name, a song, a moment, yours, maybe, or someone else's. The keeper turns toward you, but you still can't see their face. You feel no fear, only the strange comfort of being known. Not understood, not judged, just known. Then the wind begins to change. It draws inward, toward the center, swirling tighter, gentler, slower. The lights dim. The quills atop the keeper's head flutter once, then still. A doorway opens behind you, one you hadn't seen before. The keeper gestures, not with their hand, but with a silence so complete it forms a shape. You bow slightly, not out of obligation, but because it feels right, and you leave. Behind you, the wind fades to breath, and the keeper becomes still once more, guarding what is forgotten, waiting for the next memory to arrive. You step out of the keeper's hall into a corridor shaped like a rib cage, its arches bone white, the floor dark as dried blood. It slopes downward, not steeply, but with purpose. A spiral once more, and this one smells of metal and candle smoke. You've gone far now, further than the sun could reach. Your torch flickers once in protest, then steadies. On the walls, mosaics begin to appear small at first, barely visible. Faces, some serene, some contorted in agony, most with closed eyes. You realize they're all sleeping, or dreaming, or trapped in whatever exists between the two. You pause at one, a girl cradling a scroll in her lap, her mouth slightly open, as if whispering secrets she never dared say aloud. Someone carved this, preserved her in dream. Why? The deeper you walk, the more vivid the figures become. Not just faces, now scenes. Students sleeping at desks, heads resting on their arms. A man slumped in a chair with books piled high behind him, one hand still holding a quill mid-thought. A child curled in a corner, clutching a clay tablet like a doll. None of these seem random. They look too familiar, as if someone remembered you would come, or had been here before. Eventually you reach a door, not made of wood or iron but stone, veined with quartz and etched with an inscription you cannot read. You press your palm against it. It's warm. The stone does not swing or slide. It recedes, melts inward like wax. Beyond it, a stairwell, narrow, ancient. The steps are shallow but endless, each one etched with what looks like writing, though most have been worn smooth by countless feet. Yours will be just another among them. You descend. No torch now, just a soft glow that seeps from the walls themselves like the last embers of a dying hearth. Still, it's enough to see by. You pass alcoves tucked into the walls. Some old scrolls sealed with wax, others simple artifacts. A cup, a sandal, a broken mask. Each one labeled, though again, the text is foreign, not unreadable, just forgotten. Then you reach a landing where the air changes. It's heavier here, not foul but thick with time, like every breath has been breathed before and is being breathed again. You press on. The stairwell ends in a small chamber, no larger than a bedroom. A stone platform sits in the center, and on it a bed. Not a luxurious one, simple, functional, worn by age but maintained. You recognize the design. Roman, yes, but older, functional. It was built for study, not sleep, and yet someone placed a pillow on it, a folded cloak as a blanket. There's a scroll on the bed, unfurled. You approach. You read. It's your own writing. Not today's, not yesterday's, but the kind of writing you did long ago, before the forgetting. There are diagrams here, notes on herbs, a sketch of the old city from memory. You didn't know you remembered it so clearly. There's a sentence at the bottom, in your hand. When you wake, they will not remember you, but the words might. You sit on the edge of the bed. The room hums softly, like a low chant. You don't recognize the language, but it rocks you gently, like wind through tall grass. You lie down, not to sleep, not yet, just to feel the shape of rest. The scroll falls from your fingers, curling like an autumn leaf. Somewhere above you, the keeper continues to wait, and the library, its bones older than the mountain, breathes around you. You walk through a corridor that seems to stretch farther than the building should allow. The ceilings press down with ancient weight, and the lantern in your hand throws shadows that jitter and stretch like memories you don't want to revisit. Each footstep clicks against the stone, a steady rhythm that begins to sound too precise, too echoed, as though someone else might be walking just behind, perfectly in sync. You don't look back, not because you aren't curious, but because the silence behind you is somehow louder than anything you might find. The walls begin to change as you move deeper. The plaster fades into stone, and then to brick, and then something older still, layered with carvings that don't quite form letters, more like outlines of something organic, curved, almost like roots or veins. They pulse, but only when you're not staring directly at them. The hallway opens suddenly into a rotunda, a single circular space impossibly tall, the ceiling shrouded in shadow. In the center stands a plinth, and on it an armillary sphere so massive it looks as if it was built to track not the heavens, but some deeper forgotten clockwork. Its rings spin slowly and possibly, despite the lack of any wind. You approach it cautiously. There's no mechanism, no gears, no chain to turn it. Yet it moves, as if counting time from a source you've never understood. Around the edges of the rotunda, alcoves bloom outward like petals, each containing scrolls too brittle to touch, or statues whose eyes follow you with unnerving precision. In one corner, a basin of dark water reflects not your face, but the library's interior, except in the reflection, the room is full of people. Silent, unmoving, cloaked in the same black robes worn by the scribes in the oldest illustrations. You blink, and the basin shows only your own outline again. The chill in the room sharpens. You move on. There's a staircase to the left spiraling downward without end, its steps worn smooth by centuries of cautious descent. You begin to follow it, running your hand along the wall, feeling indentations where fingers have done the same over generations. A strange comfort blooms in your chest. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Somewhere far below, you hear a bell. It rings not with alarm, but invitation, low, resonant, like it's asking if you remember what you've come here to find. Halfway down, you stop. A fresco lines the curved wall beside you. It shows a man reading a book by firelight, surrounded by birds, with a flame behind him. In the next panel, the same man is shown asleep, the birds gone, the book closed. In the final image, the man is ashes, but the book remains untouched, still glowing faintly with inner light. You linger too long, absorbing it, trying to decipher its warning or promise, then continue downward. The stair opens into a chamber far below the library's ground floor, a forbidden archive, perhaps, or something older still. This is not a place people were meant to wander. The books here are caged, each behind iron lattice, some of them chained shut with thick bronze links. A long reading table rests in the center, its surface covered in melted wax and ink stains, the edges carved with names and a dozen ancient scripts. At the head of the table, a single chair waits, carved from blackened wood, its seat sunken from generations of weight. The air here is so still you can hear the wood creak just from your breath alone. You take your seat. The chair beneath you is uncomfortably solid, but it fits. Not in the way a cushion molds to your form, but in the way an obligation finds its rightful owner. The table before you is scarred with time cuts from knives, symbols etched in frustration or reverence, ink spills that look like constellations if you stare long enough. Your fingers find a groove near the edge, worn down not by tools, but by hands. The presence of others lingers here, embedded in the wood, in the air, in the silence. You aren't alone, not really. This room remembers everyone who ever sat at this table, eyes wide, heart slow, unsure whether they were reading history or becoming part of it. Across from you, a thick book lies open. You didn't place it there. You don't even recall seeing it before. The parchment pages ripple slightly, though there's no breeze. The ink is dark, dense, curling in a script you recognize but can't name. You lean closer, and as your eyes adjust, the letters seem to move, not with animation, but with intent, as if each symbol was placed there not to be read, but to be unlocked. The passage describes a moment, not from history, not from myth. It is your moment, this moment. Sitting here, reading this, the words narrate your breath, the way your hand now rests gently on the page. You test it, lift your hand. The next sentence appears, and then they lifted their hand, uncertain. You close the book. It does not resist, but it feels like closing a door you were not meant to open. Still, the air changes. A low vibration hums beneath your feet, too deep to hear with your ears, but not your bones. One of the locked cages on the wall creaks. The chain rustles. A single book falls from its shelf, landing softly on the stone floor, as if the room itself chose it for you. You retrieve it. It's bound in something rough, not leather, not cloth, almost like bark. The cover bears no title, just an indentation the size of your palm. When you touch it, the surface warms. The cover splits open like a seed, revealing not text, but a folded map. Hand-drawn, warm, its edges crumble slightly as you unfold it. The map doesn't depict lands or cities or rivers. It shows ideas, places that only exist when named aloud. Symbols mark locations with names like the thought that escaped or the memory before fire. A single point at the map's edge is circled in red. Here you begin. No path connects it to anything else. You run your fingers over the ink. It smears not ruinously, but intentionally, like it's inviting you to rewrite, to explore, to make something new. Then, behind you, a shelf moves. It doesn't groan like wood. It breathes, shifting aside to reveal a narrow passage carved from black stone. Not brick, not marble, something older. Inside, the air is colder, thicker. You don't question your next step. You leave the table, the map still in hand, and walk into the dark. You are not afraid, not yet, because fear is for those who don't know they're already part of the story. The walls grow damp as you move deeper, the air thickening with age and something less definable, something that does not rot, but lingers. These aren't ordinary tunnels. They weren't made for transport or storage. They were built with purpose, though no one who built them lives to explain it. Your boots land softly now, not on stone, but on compacted dust, and something that once resembled fabric. The sound is swallowed. Even your breathing feels quieter here. This level of the library was never drawn on any of the city plans. You're certain of it now. The slope of the stairs has changed, the structure subtly shifting in its geometry, no longer obeying the logic of Roman architecture. What was once linear begins to curve. You see no sharp corners, no columns, no typical markers of human design. And yet, this is still a place of knowledge, a place of memory. You descend into a vast circular room. The light is faint, but constant enough to see the carvings on the wall without knowing their source. You squint, expecting shadows, but none come. The chamber is lit the way dreams are lit, uncertain, warm, without flame. Around you, the wall is ringed by a continuous relief, a single unbroken depiction of a procession. Dozens, no, hundreds of figures move along the outer circumference. Some bear scrolls, others carry relics you don't recognize. Rods with feathered ends, hourglasses shaped like lungs, instruments with strings too many and taut. The figures aren't labeled, but you know them. Not by name, but by sensation. These are the keepers of forgotten knowledge, the patrons of silent memory. You feel them watching without eyes. The center of the room is a pit circular, about the length of a chariot across, ringed with stone benches carved into the floor itself. It is an amphitheater for no audience, a classroom for no teacher. At the very center of the pit is a dais, upon which sits a single object, a stone vessel sealed with wax, around which is coiled an iron band, etched in symbols you can't translate but understand anyway. It is not for opening, not yet. Maybe not ever. You walk the perimeter slowly, your hand grazing the wall where the figures march. At intervals, the figures change. Some become monstrous horned, feathered, scaled. Others dissolve into smoke, trailing off into jagged shapes and broken geometry. But the line never breaks. It loops eternally. You realize you're not walking along a wall. You're walking a timeline. On a raised section of the wall sits a small inset chamber, almost like an alcove or shrine. Inside it, instead of a sculpture or offering, is a mirror. You step closer. Your reflection is visible, but incomplete. You see your face, but behind it flicker other faces, overlaid for a breath, then gone. A child, an old woman, a soldier, a librarian. They all wear your eyes. You touch the glass. The surface ripples, not with water, but with memory. You don't move your hand away. You see yourself in another room, the one you're in, but now full brimming with robed figures, voices chanting, scrolls unfurling across the benches. The sealed vessel in the center is open, and from it, light pours upward like smoke, like thought made visible. You see names written in the air, languages you can't read, and yet you hear them in your bones. A voice speaks to you not in Latin, nor Greek, nor any known tongue, but in resonance, like the low hum of an ancient instrument. You know the meaning, though not the grammar. Nothing forgotten, nothing truly lost, only displaced. You pull back. The mirror is once again ordinary. Your own face looking back, your eyes full of something you cannot name. The silence is deeper now, and in the silence a sound begins, not music, but rhythm, a pulse, not your own heartbeat, but older, larger, the kind of rhythm that forms under mountains or within stars. It's coming from beneath the floor. You kneel, press your palm to the stone. The pulse is there, steady, waiting. You realize this chamber is not only for memory, it is for transmission. You're not meant to learn something here. You're meant to carry it. From the far side of the room, a narrow doorway opens. You didn't notice it before. It's only wide enough for one person. Beyond it, another passage. No light this time, just the pulsing sound and a growing warmth. You stand. You are no longer here to explore. You are here to receive. And remember, the corridor narrows, forcing your shoulders inward. You duck beneath hanging roots or threads. You're not entirely sure. The texture is strange, more like dried sinew than vegetation. Still, they don't move. They seem fossilized, preserved. You can't tell if this place was carved by hands or formed around the idea of passage. There's no sound now, not even the hum, just the dull rhythm of your own heartbeat, now out of sync with the warmth ahead. Your torch has long since gone out, but the path glows faintly, not from light, but memory. The walls shimmer with something deeper than vision, each step forward unveiling patterns like faded ink on parchment maps, scripts, equations that rearrange themselves before your eyes. You don't try to read them anymore. You understand that this language isn't meant to be deciphered. It's meant to be remembered. Eventually, the path opens not into a chamber, but into an impossibly vast atrium. The scale is staggering. Pillars of light stretch upward into a ceiling you cannot see, while staircases spiral in every direction, vanishing into shadows or bending into impossible angles. You realize that the architecture is no longer constrained by physics. This place was designed by memory and bound by thought. Floating between the staircases are figures, not human exactly, but not unfamiliar, cloaked in robes of thin parchment, their faces covered by masks made of wax. shaped into the likenesses of philosophers, priests, children, scribes. They don't speak, they don't look at you, yet they seem to drift with purpose, gliding between levels, tending to invisible tasks. One passes close. You hear a sound, not speech, but the turning of a page. The rustle echoes like thunder in your chest. You descend one of the staircases, feeling gravity shift with you. Every step down takes longer than the last. You aren't sure if you're slowing or if time is stretching around you. At the base of the stairs you find a platform made of glass. Beneath it, a vast library scrolls, codices, tablets, some too large to be moved, others smaller than your palm. They are organized not by topic, but by experience, emotion, memory. This is not a library of facts. It is a library of feeling. A robed figure glides toward the center of the platform and gestures without looking at you. A single scroll lifts into the air and unrolls itself slowly, deliberately. The words on it burn for a moment, then vanish. But their meaning stays with you like smoke caught in your lungs. It's not a message, it's a task. You are to become a vessel, to return to your world above with knowledge too vast for speech, but not too vast for presence. To carry the weight of memory not as history, but as gravity, as something that bends others around you, whether they know it or not. You kneel. Not out of reverence, but because you suddenly cannot stand. The platform lowers. The vast chamber begins to vanish behind veils of smoke until all is silence again. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. You are being remade, and when you rise, it will not be as the person who entered. It will be as something else entirely. A keeper of what cannot be written, a guardian of thought before language. And as the passage opens once again into the stairwell, you feel lighter, and yet impossibly full. The return path isn't marked, but your feet move as though they remember. The spiral stairs no longer defy logic now, they expect you, as though the library has finished its imprinting and no longer needs to hold you. You pass alcoves carved into the stone, each holding objects that seem familiar and alien all at once. A single candle still burning despite no flame, a child's clay figurine wrapped in gold wire, a cracked amphora with water that reflects stars you've never seen. You don't touch them. You feel as though you already have. Somewhere above a chime sounds, the first real sound since you arrived. It echoes through the staircase like a ripple through stone. The other figures, those robed beings, begin to vanish, not walking, not floating, just ceasing. Not abruptly, but gently, as if the memory of them no longer needs to be maintained. You emerge into a corridor you don't remember entering. It's dry now, the air thinner. The scent of dust and parchment fades, replaced by the warm iron scent of a place that once held life and fire. The walls are painted with symbols, not the ever-changing scripts from below, but crude, ancient icons drawn by hand. Sun and moon, fire and hand, eye and spiral. A language before language, the kind etched into the walls by the first ones who needed to remember something without knowing why. Ahead, a doorway of obsidian, not closed, not open, just waiting. You walk through, and the corridor collapses behind you, not violently, but like a book closing, soft, complete. You do not turn around. The chamber you step into is circular, with a domed ceiling that glows faintly from veins of embedded crystal. There are no torches here, no windows, and yet everything is visible. A stone basin sits in the center, filled with water so still it appears solid. You move toward it, not because you are told to, but because the silence suggests it. The kind of invitation that can't be spoken. You look into the basin. Your reflection is there, but changed. Beneath the surface, your face is yours, but layered, woven with others. A historian's brow, a poet's eyes, a child's jaw, a soldier's mouth. You blink, and the images shift, rearrange, but always remain. You understand that what you're seeing is not your face, but your memory as it has been absorbed by the place, as it now belongs to something larger than you. A sound begins, not external, inside you, like a heartbeat echoing against stone, except it's not your own. It's older, slower, the pulse of the archive itself. You realize you are not here to take anything from this place. You are here to leave something behind, and so you do. Not with hands, not with pen, but with breath, with memory. The moment stretches, then softens. The light from the ceiling fades slightly, the basin dims, and you know that whatever needed to be passed on has been received. When you step back, the air is lighter, not cleaner, not freer, just less burdened. You are no longer the vessel. You are what the vessel becomes after it has been emptied. And as the last doorway appears in the far wall, outlined in soft amber, you realize something startling. You are ready, not to leave the library. Everywhere. The corridor narrows as you move forward, the air thick with a warmth that isn't oppressive, but somehow sentient, like the architecture itself has decided to hold its breath. The walls are etched from floor to ceiling in scripts no tongue you know could speak, and yet your eyes understand them. They tell of movements, of rituals, of years, catalogued not in numbers but in sensations. How spring felt in the southern courtyards. How thunder once cracked directly above the northern dome. Every footstep you take here becomes part of the narrative, not intruding on it but expanding it, as if the place had long awaited your arrival to complete something half-written. You find yourself in a chamber wider than it should be, the kind of space that feels larger on the inside, not through illusion, but through memory. Statues line the walls, all seated, none identical. Some have faces worn smooth from time. Others are so sharply detailed, they seem freshly carved. Their eyes do not follow you, but their presence is impossible to ignore. Between them, long banners of woven fiber hang down like veins of history-fated colors, still holding fast to their purpose. In the center, a circular platform rises only a few inches from the ground. It's undecorated except for a single obsidian bowl resting on top. It's empty, but you feel the weight of what it once held. You step closer, and as you do, the light in the chamber begins to shift, not dimming or brightening, but reorienting. Shadows stretch upward instead of sideways. The sound of your breathing grows distant. You kneel not because you must, but because standing feels presumptuous. The bowl reflects nothing. Not your face, not the ceiling, not the statues around you. It is the kind of black that absorbs thought. You lean over it, and for a moment you hear whispers, not voices exactly, but fragments of longing, promises never fulfilled, lessons passed on in secret. You don't flinch. You stay there, listening. And then it stops, not abruptly, but like a dream slipping away before it can be written down. You rise slowly and turn your gaze to the statues. For the first time, they seem to face inward, not at you, but at the bowl. You feel like an intruder again, but not unwelcome. More like someone who stumbled into a ceremony older than language. You walk along the edge of the chamber, fingertips brushing the stone, tracing the grooves like braille. Every inch of this place remembers, and every moment spent here writes you deeper into it. A low hum begins, and you don't know if it's mechanical, architectural, or biological. It resonates in your chest, not unpleasantly. Your pulse sinks to it. You walk back through the narrow passage, leaving the bowl, the watchers, and the hum behind, but not entirely. Some part of it stays with you, not as weight, as direction. You don't look back, not because there's nothing to see, but because forward now feels sacred. You pass again through the script-covered corridor, and this time the symbols dim behind you, one by one, like a library closing its eyes. You feel the hallway widen as you near its end, but there is no door, only a soft light, the kind of light that doesn't illuminate but reveals. You step through. You do not ask what's next. The place has already given you more than answers, and still it holds a silence that lingers like a final word no one dares speak aloud. The path ahead shifts in texture, no longer the smooth stone of the inner library, but something more primal. The floor is packed earth, layered over time with the dust of thought and the sediment of study. The scent changes too, less of parchment and oil, more of minerals and slow decay. It smells like secrets buried for safekeeping. The corridor opens into what can only be described as a reliquary not of bones or saints, but of unfinished work. The room is filled with tables, each one supporting a project left incomplete. A scroll, only half translated, a vial uncorked beside an oxidized scale, a stylus still wet beside a wax tablet. Nothing is in disarray. It feels like the minds that once filled this space simply stood up and walked away mid-thought, mid-theory, and the room has waited untouched ever since. You move among the relics with deliberate steps. A map on one table shows the world not as it is, but as it was imagined, seas where deserts now sprawl, mountain ranges drawn with intention rather than geography. Another scroll displays only dots and lines, but they're arranged in a way that makes your eyes blur. Some kind of harmonic code, perhaps, or a lost system of timekeeping. You recognize none of it, yet none of it feels alien. It's the kind of knowledge that lives just beneath the surface of dreams familiar, not because you've studied it, but because part of you remembers it from somewhere before thought was shaped into words. At the far end, a wall of wooden drawers stretches floor to ceiling. Each is labeled not with numbers or names, but symbols, some carved, others burned into the grain. You slide one open and find a small bundle of papyrus fragments, wrapped in thread. They've yellowed unevenly, and you dare not touch them directly. A nearby pair of iron tongs offers a clue they were meant to be handled with reverence. The fragments themselves are covered in spiraling ink, not handwriting, not art, something in between. You hold them up to the low light and notice patterns repeating not across lines, but across pages, some hidden within folds, others only visible when angled just so. A language designed to reveal itself only to those with the patience to be still. You set the pieces down, not gently, not carefully, just correctly, like someone performing a rite without needing to be taught the steps. The drawer closes with a sound that feels like punctuation. In the center of the room is a chair, low-backed, made of polished olive wood. It faces a wall that appears blank until you sit. From that angle, faint carvings emerge. Diagrams of musculature, planetary arcs, root systems, and city layouts all overlap into a single composition. The message is not that one diagram explains the others, it's that all of them are part of the same sentence. You sit there longer than you realize. There's no clock, no sunbeam, no indicator of time passing. But your breath has changed, slowed, deepened. This is not the sort of rest that invites sleep. It's the kind that prepares you for something. When you rise, you are not the same, not wiser, perhaps, but attuned, the way one might be after holding a note so long that silence itself sounds different. You leave the reliquary as it was, no object disturbed, no drawer left open, no answer forced. And yet the room is changed, not by what you took, but by what it gave you permission to carry. You step out into the corridor again, and now even the shadows seem to recognize you. The corridor narrows, funneling you toward a chamber dimly lit by an unfamiliar glow. This is not firelight or the soft hue of lantern oil. It's colder, more distant, almost like moonlight that forgot how to be silver. As you enter, the temperature shifts cooler here, but not unpleasant. More like the breath of a tomb that's content with being undisturbed. The walls are smooth limestone, polished to a sheen that catches the strange light and scatters it in arcs across the floor. Shapes curved, geometric, undeciphered dance around your feet as you walk, giving the illusion that the room is reacting to your movement. At the center of the chamber stands a tall structure, a column wrapped in scrolls bound by thin copper wire. The wire winds upward, vanishing into a carved relief in the ceiling that resembles a star chart, though none of the constellations are familiar. You circle the pillar slowly, noticing how the scrolls seem to hum faintly, not with sound, but with sensation. Like they're not just objects, but recordings, echoes. You reach out, fingers hovering just above the copper, and feel a pulse. One beat, then another, not mechanical, not magical, simply alive. A name rises unbidden in your mind. Not a name you've heard before, not one you've read, but it feels as though it belongs to you or once did. The sound of it vanishes as quickly as it arrived, but its echo lingers in the hollow of your chest. You understand now that this part of the library isn't meant to be read. It's meant to be remembered. Not intellectually, but in the way the body remembers how to balance, how to run, how to brace for a storm. You kneel beside the pillar, not because you're tired, because it feels like the right thing to do. A gentle vibration hums through the floor, and you realize it's not coming from the structure. It's coming from beneath it. The ground here is not entirely solid. Something moves far below. A mechanism? A natural tremor? Or simply the living memory of too many minds pressing downward over too many years? The answer doesn't come, but the question doesn't need one. You sit there for a time, listening not with ears, but with posture. Eventually the sensation fades. You stand, leaving the pillar exactly as it was. The air behind you seems warmer now, as if some unseen presence acknowledges your visit. The exit is marked by nothing. No sign, no change in floor texture, no welcoming torch. Just a subtle draft guiding you down the next hole. You follow it, not because you must, but because here, in this ancient cathedral of thought and silence, choosing to move forward is the only real prayer. Your footsteps lead you deeper than you thought the library extended. The torches above flicker with more hesitation now, as if reluctant to bear witness to what lies below. Walls are no longer lined with scrolls, but with carvings, rows of symbols etched with such precision they must have taken decades. The language is ancient, even by this place's standards. You trace a line of glyphs with your finger, feeling the smoothness where 1,000 others must have done the same. To your left, a narrow alcove reveals a polished slab stone dark as obsidian. Upon it rests a single object, a sealed clay jar. No label, no markings, nothing to hint at what it might contain, and yet you hesitate, because here nothing is ever just what it appears to be. A quiet thud catches your attention. It came from above, or behind, you're no longer sure. The echo bends with the shape of the halls, distorting even the concept of direction. But your pace doesn't quicken. There is no panic in you now, only presence. As you walk again, you pass a small door ajar. A breeze trickles out unnatural in its coolness. You peer inside and see a chamber filled with mirrors. Tall, thin mirrors placed in a circle, each facing inward. In their reflections, you do not see yourself, not quite. The figure is dressed as you are, moves as you do, but its eyes are not yours. You study the face for a moment, too long, then step away. Another corridor bends. Another staircase descends. The library, it seems, does not end. Or perhaps you've slipped into the part of it not meant for finding. You think again of the scholar, of the warning, whispered like a farewell. Some rooms are not for reading. You wonder what they meant. You wonder what they saw. And then you arrive. The air here feels untouched by time. No dust, no decay. Just a stillness so complete it makes sound feel like an intrusion. The chamber is circular. At its center, a great table carved from petrified wood, surrounded by empty chairs. Each chair bears a different sigil, each one unfamiliar, as if they belong not just to different people, but different worlds. You rest a hand on the table's edge. It hums, not aloud but under your skin. You close your eyes. The hum becomes a voice. The voice becomes a memory, but it's not yours. The memory is not yours, but it settles inside you like something long forgotten. You don't see it, you feel it. A gathering. 12 seated figures, 12 sigils, 12 voices speaking not with mouths but with intention, each one ancient and unhurried. They are not debating, not disagreeing, but layering truths like paint upon stone. One speaks of a world beneath water, where the stars are mirrors and time folds like cloth. Another speaks of fire used not for warmth or war, but for remembering. One by one, the voices construct something, not a story, not a map, but a lens. Through it you glimpse a different world, not the future, not the past, just other. And then it fades, not like mist, like stone crumbling. You blink, the chamber is empty once more. The chairs remain, the table unchanged, but the weight of their presence is gone. The hum beneath your palm has stopped, but your hand still tingles. You leave the chamber in silence, not because silence is required, but because speech would feel too loud for a place like this. The hallway outside is darker now, not in light, but in mood, as if the building itself knows you've seen too much, that you've come too close to what should remain unsaid. The corridors narrow again. The air thickens. The scent of old oil and parchment and iron returns. You feel for the first time in a while like a guest again, not a participant, not a vessel. At the next bend you find a stair you don't remember passing before. It leads upward. Your legs respond before your thoughts do. Climbing step by step, your body feels heavier, not with fatigue, but with understanding. It weighs more to know what you now know. At the top, you reach a landing. A small brass basin sits against the wall. Its water is perfectly still. You lean over it and see your reflection, not the one you saw in the mirrored room, but your true face, warm, thoughtful, altered. You take a breath and realize you've not done so consciously in minutes. The library is not testing you anymore. It's observing, waiting. You are no longer navigating it. You are being carried through it by intention. Another door waits. This one is wood, dark, ancient, bearing no handle, just a shallow indentation the shape of a palm. You place your hand there, and the door withdraws inward with a sigh, revealing a final corridor one that hums with the unmistakable scent of burning ink. Inside, everything feels warmer, not comforting, not threatening, just final. The passage narrows not just in width, but in spirit, as though the space is being funneled into something older than the structure itself. You feel it before you notice the change, the shift in weight and silence, in the subtle pulse beneath your feet that seems less like vibration and more like memory. There are no torches now, no lanterns. Yet your path is faintly lit, the way moonlight can find the earth through a canopy of trees. The glow is soft, untraceable, like the breath of something vast and unseen breathing just behind the stone. The walls shift too. No longer lined with scrolls or polished tile, they now bear markings etched, scratched, almost whispered into the surface. They are not decorative, not beautiful, not meant to impress. They are functional, utilitarian, possibly ritualistic. You can't read them, but you don't need to. Their presence is enough. They feel like a record of something that isn't meant to be spoken aloud. Instructions, maybe, or warnings, or grief. Old grief. You move slowly, not out of fear, out of reverence. The kind that comes not from worship, but recognition. Like walking through a room someone else has just wept in. The air is dry now, no longer perfumed with books or ancient wax. It smells like burnt fennel and old sandalwood. You recognize it from temple rites, from the cloaks of wandering mystics and the hands of your grandmother. It is the scent of closure and transition. The temperature has dropped too, but it's not the chill of cold stone, it's thinner. Like the air has forgotten how to carry warmth this far beneath the city. You find yourself entering a round chamber, perfectly symmetrical, as if carved by intention, not by accident or erosion. There are no corners, no shelves, no exits you can see. The walls are smooth, with only those same shallow carvings tracing their curves in unreadable spirals. In the center of the room stands a pedestal, and on it a single scroll. It's open just slightly, its edges curled upward, not from time, but from use. The parchment is pale but firm, not cracked or yellowed. It looks held, as if it's been opened and closed by thousands of hands, but never mishandled. You don't reach for it yet. Instead, you walk around the pedestal, noting how the stone seems to rise like fingers from beneath, sculpted into two hands cupping the base, cradling the scroll like an offering. You finally move closer, and though you still cannot read the ink, you understand it, not through knowledge, but resonance, a deep bodily understanding that surpasses language. You feel the meaning move through you like sound moves through water deep, slow, absolute. This scroll is not a story. It is your story, or a version of it, a rhythm that lives at the center of your own pulse. You wonder how many others have felt this, how many came before you and found themselves mirrored here in this place. How many left changed, if they ever left at all. Then the scroll begins to curl inward, not by magic, not by wind. It simply rolls itself shut, as if your seeing it was enough. It slips downward, into the hands, into the pedestal, vanishing with no sound, no ceremony. And you feel no panic, no urgency to hold on to what was just lost. Instead, you exhale and sit, right there, on the stone floor. The air is cool against your skin, and you feel your spine settle. No cushion, no comfort, just presence. Your thoughts are quiet now, not because you've silenced them, but because the need for them has passed. You don't know what comes next, but for the first time you aren't seeking it. You don't stand immediately. The stillness is thick, but not suffocating. It's contemplative, like the long pause after a truth has been spoken, and everyone in the room understands there's no need to say anything more. The pedestal remains empty now, the two hands carved into its base unchanged, as though they never held anything at all, but you feel it. The scroll is still with you, not physically. It's folded into you now, somewhere behind the ribs, beneath the lungs, stitched into memory and marrow, like something you were always meant to carry. Eventually, your body moves not out of command, but invitation. The chamber gently opens a seam you hadn't noticed before, revealing a narrow hallway. You don't question it. The air within it feels warm, but not in a way that beckons danger. It's hearth warm, familiar. You step into it and find yourself descending again. The path is smoother now, less jagged, less echoing with ancient intention. You feel the weight of your boots less. Your shoulders feel unburdened. You haven't removed anything, but you feel lighter, as if something unspoken has been released, some spiritual fever broken without ceremony. The passage leads you into a room that isn't really a room. It feels more like the inside of a memory. It doesn't have clear walls or ceiling. It just is, and within it scenes begin to surface. Not like visions, not like ghosts, like recollections that didn't belong to you until now. A man with a cracked tablet in his lap, writing not with a stylus, but with ash. A woman in layered linen whispering over a candle, the wax dripping like sand through fingers. A child curled against a painted jar, humming a melody that vibrates through the floor. These aren't stories being told to you. They are lives being offered, not as lessons, but as company. One of the figures, a tall scribe with ink-stained fingertips, looks toward you, not with eyes, but with intention. His presence centers, sharpens, becomes distinct. He doesn't speak, but you understand. He is not from the past. He is from a different layer of time entirely, a time that lives beneath time, a subterranean record of existence that runs parallel to history, but obeys none of its rules. The library was built not just to protect knowledge, but to preserve this very idea that nothing is ever lost, only misplaced, misremembered, reframed. He gestures for you to follow, and you do. Not with your feet, but with attention. He walks through the memory field like a seamstress pulling thread through cloth, weaving your awareness along with his. You begin to see shelves again, not literal ones, but layers of understanding, rows of thought, columns of feeling, archives of every silence that ever passed between two people who loved each other and never said it out loud. He moved through these like a guardian or maybe just a guide, and then he stops, places one hand on a floating panel of stone. It tilts toward you slightly, revealing not a page, but a reflection, not of your face, of your experience. Every moment that has brought you to this quiet breath. You step closer, expecting emotion, but there's only quiet. The kind that comes when everything makes sense, not logically, but soulfully. You see your mistakes, your small kindnesses, your moments of near courage. You don't judge them. You don't cling to them. They simply pass. You blink and they fold back into the stone. The guide fades with them. His work done. Not dismissed, not abandoned. Just complete. You are alone again, but not as you were, not empty, not uncertain, just full in the way an ancient vessel might be, not spilling, but settled, balanced. You notice a new opening ahead, this one rounded and shaped like the rising sun, and without hesitation you move toward it. The room darkens behind you, the memory dissolving. But something deeper remains, not information, not detail, just a knowing, a quiet, abiding knowing that somehow, without understanding why, you now belong to the library as much as it belongs to you. The new passage curves like a spiral, but it doesn't disorient. It guides you inward, not into darkness, but into calm. There's no sound of footsteps anymore. Either the floor is softer, or you've stopped needing to notice. The space isn't lit, but it isn't dark either. A soft amber glow seems to exist without source, like the inside of an eyelid when you're not quite asleep, but not truly awake. You pass carvings now, low to the ground. Not grand inscriptions, these are humble. A shepherd's tally. A child's drawing scratched into clay. Someone's clumsy attempt at poetry, too uneven to be professional, too sincere to be ignored. These aren't the works of history's loudest minds. These are offerings from the quiet ones, the anonymous, the forgotten. And yet here they remain, sheltered, seen, preserved not because they shaped the world, but because they were part of it. You lower your hand to trace one of the carvings, and the moment your fingers brush it, you feel not the stone, but the hand that made it. A flicker of their breath, their skin, their fear, the way they hesitated before beginning, the way they pressed anyway. This place doesn't store knowledge. It stores presence. Every fragment a witness, every mark a fingerprint of being. And as you move farther into the spiral, the floor begins to slope gently upward. You feel it more than you notice it, a gradual return to the surface, not just of the earth, but of yourself. The air changes, cooler, sharper, like mountain air or breath after a long-held silence. You're ascending now, not toward answers, but toward integration. You don't need meaning. You've already lived it. You reach a final threshold, not a door, just an opening framed by two tall pillars. They're not inscribed, not labeled, just standing unmoving, unchanged, as though they've been waiting centuries to witness your return. You step through, and the world shifts. The sky above you is dusk blue, that deep shade of almost night. A few stars glint weakly through the veil of gathering cloud. Trees sway quietly nearby. You can hear the wind again, a sound so familiar you'd almost forgotten how much you missed it. Somewhere behind you, buried beneath stone and sand and story, the library hums. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to let you know it's still there. You sit on a flat stone near the edge of a small rise. There's no view to speak of, just grass and wind and time. You sit not because you're tired, but because the journey has stilled you. Your hands rest in your lap. You don't need to speak. You don't need to remember. The knowing is in your bones now, and that's enough. A faint vibration begins beneath your feet. Not an earthquake, not danger. Just the slow, ancient sigh of something deep beneath the earth finally returning to sleep. The dust settles. The ground calms. The past folds in on itself, cradled in memory. And you, the traveler, the reader, the forgotten scribe, the silent observer, you sit with it, unmoving, unworried, and whole. You've returned, not to where you began, but to yourself. Wherever this story took you, it brought you back quieter, softer, perhaps even lighter. There's no need to open your eyes, no rush to remember the journey. The library still stands beneath thought and time, holding everything you touched, and you are part of it now. Sleep well, traveler. We'll meet again, somewhere between memory and dream,